screens and then I might lose you. So if I'm speaking and what I'm saying is not in line with what you see on the screen, please tell me that, doctor, I can't see your screen, because I don't know whether you see it or not until I see the recording. Okay, so this is Linguistik Clinical. Okay, and we are going to discuss two linguistic profiles to describe normal speech and language, and also disordered speech and language. This is what I think is interesting with this linguistic profiles. You can do it for normal and abnormal development. This time we're going to talk about the language assessment, remediation, and screening procedure, LARSP, and the profile of phonology, PROPH. So LARSP deals with syntactic analysis of free spontaneous language samples, but actually it can also be used to analyze narrative, retelling stories, or even relating experience, while the PROPH deals with the phonological processes used by an individual. And we say individual because it can be used for children and also adults. Okay, so we're going to use BOEM. I'm going to use BOEM. So this is a soft PDF that I will give to your rep, which is a manual actually, a user manual. So BOEM from Melbourne University, I believe, she took Crystal's book. So initially I used Crystal 1992, Profiling Linguistic Disability, but this is the British, when they write textbooks, they're very detailed. So a very good book if you want to go into details. But sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. So then BOEM in 2007 took points from this book and then make it to a more user-friendly with exercises at the end of each chapter. So it is more user-friendly. Then we can also look at the other newer LARSP languages books. For example, Ball, Crystal, and Fletcher in 2012, Assessing Grammar, the Languages of LARSP. Now, in this book, the Chinese LARSP by the Mandarin LARSP or Chinese LARSP on Malaysian children. There's a chapter of it in here that headed by Prof. Li Zhenjin and myself and the other co-authors. And then in 2016, Fletcher, Ball, and Crystal, 2016, Profiling Grammar, More Languages of LARSP. This is where more languages are included, and one of them is Malay. So we have the Malay LARSP adapted to Malay in this as one chapter. I think it's development of syntactic abilities of Malay children. Okay. And then there is Fletcher. There's a book by Fletcher, Language Development and Language Impairment, a problem-based introduction. We'll see whether we can get it from the free online website. Okay. So actually this course is a workshop kind of course. So we've had courses which are academic. You have to learn a lot in linguistic, and then you have but this is more of a workshop. So it's less of lectures, but a lot of doing in class. And then we discuss if there are any queries, I'm sure. Actually, LARSP is something that when you do, you will realize that, oh, I'm stuck with this, so you need to get my advice, and then you can proceed, and that's how you learn. You learn by doing. You never learn by just reading. You need to learn, you need to use in order to learn. So in this course, our learning outcomes at the end of the course is that Students are able to identify by giving the characteristics of linguistic profile charts that can be used in speech therapy clinics. So you will be able to characterize LARS and also PROPH. Students are able to produce a syntactic profile of an individual's language sample using the LARS. And then students are able to produce a phonological profile using the Profile of Phonology or PROPH. Okay. And then make it a bit smaller. Oh, it's not this one. Need to get another one. Where is it? Let me see. Where I have the here. Can you see? Pentaksiran.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're now doing away with final exams. It's much easier that way. Plus, our course is more practical. So you're going to do LARS as a group on normal child, 100 utterances. That will be 30%. We will talk about how you're going to do the assignment, don't worry. And then each of you going to do a written LARS abnormal. That means you take your patient, any patient that you have, the language sample, and then you analyze the language sample. It could be a patient that you have been seeing, and you have language samples, so you can do that. But the samples, of course, as always, it has to be complete. Adult child, or it's a complete thing, not just the child's utterances. Okay, then Dr. Bhatt will do the PROPH assignment as a group, and then you will have a peer evaluation, 5%, and at the end you're going to do oral presentation in class of the assignment, and you can choose whether you want to present the LARS or the PROPH.
Doctor, I'm sorry. Are you presenting the Word document, Doctor?
Yes, but it's a new one.
We are still seeing the old one, Doctor.
Yeah. Let's see, I think it's this one. Can you see?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, so there's two assignments on LARS. One is normal as a group, and one is the abnormal. This is an individual that you can take from your client load. You could also, actually no problem, you can also take from other seniors, other people's client, as long as the transcription is complete. Yeah? So complete with stimuli response, with the speakers, and the conversation partners are all there, and it's all transcribed, it's complete. Because sometimes you want to analyze the utterance, you need to know what was said before that, what question was asked, he replied. So that's very important. The one with just the child's utterance, the person that you are, it's not good. It's out of context. Okay, so then Cik Bat will ask you, Dr. Bat will ask you to do a PROPH assignment as a group, and then we will going to ask you to evaluate, because 3 of the assignments are group plus the presentation, right? So two of the assignment is group, and then plus presentation as a group. In this presentation, you can actually choose between you want to do LARS or you want to do PROPH. But we will make sure that you have to vote lah. Take a vote. Who's going to do LARS and who's going to do. We don't want everyone to do PROPH or everyone to do LARS. Okay, so your So after this class or any time that's convenient to you, you will talk to your rep. Is it still Prita?
Yes, doctor.
Miss Prita, yeah?
Yes, doctor.
Were you forced or you volunteered?
We usually will vote at the end of the year, doctor.
So you're the favorite, huh?
Sorry, doctor?
You're the favorite. They like you.
I'm not sure about that, doctor.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you should be rotated actually. All right. So that gets to 100%, 80 and 20, 800%. So no final exam, huh? We used to have final exam, so now no final exam. But I don't know. I hope everyone will try and everyone will do the assignment, huh? Everyone will do the assignment. And then your knowledge will be reflected in your presentation lah. Your knowledge of the profiles. Okay, so the course is administered. The penyelaras is actually Dr. Badrul Zaman, and I'm only a lecturer. Yeah, so if anything, you can email me at Segi and also at my Gmail. I prefer Gmail because Segi uses Outlook, and it's very hard to do a search. Hopeless for searching. Let's say you want to search some topic of the email. I think Gmail is better. So please send to my Gmail. Then you can WhatsApp me. You can WhatsApp me. Yeah, for questions. But it's good. It's better to email because through email you can actually. Okay, WhatsApp also can because I also access the WhatsApp through my laptop. Yes, no problem. All right. Okay. Any question? So after this, determine your group because the group will be for all. The group will be the same group for LARSP, for PROPH, and for the oral presentation. So yes.
Sorry, Prof. I just want to ask, the group would be how big is it, Prof?
There's how many? 22 of you, right?
Yes, Prof.
You can do 4 groups, 20. So two groups will have 5 and 2 groups will have 6. 4 groups. So then at the end, 2 group will take a vote to do. Two will do LARS, 2 will do PROPH. But you need to take a vote. Okay. Thank you. That's a good question. Yes. Okay. So now I'm going to show you. I'm going to start the lecture today. Introduction. This is a PowerPoint that presentation that I did in USM a few years back. So I'm going to tell you the story about Malay and Mandarin LARS. Okay. We got a funding from the British Council, Prime Minister Initiative, PM12 Connect. It's a research cooperation award in 2008 until 2010. And this is a collaboration between De Montfort University, headed by Professor Li Zhenjin, and UKM, headed by me. And then my co-researchers, Lim Hui Won, Azmarul Aziz, Badrul Zaman Hamid, and Kartini Ahmad at that time. Okay. So the purpose of it is to collect normative data and develop a syntactic database for Chinese and Malay speaking children in Malaysia within the age of 1 year old and 6-11 years old. So it's a big gap, a big range, because we want to monitor the developmental. And then we want to construct syntactic assessment tools that we can use based on the LARS which will show their profiles and their strength and their weakness. Okay, this is the LARS. It looks very tiny. It looks very. Does it look daunting to you? I think LARS is tak kenal tak cinta kind of thing. Yeah? It looks a lot, but not a problem. Once you get the hang of it, it gets better with more experience. So if you look at the LARS, you have, I will discuss later, but there's four. The first four sections A, B, C, D. This is talking about the A is talking about the quality of the transcription, unintelligible, symbolic noise, deviant, problematic, incomplete, ambiguous, stereotypes. So it will give you some information about how the transaction, how did the conversation go. And then B is the response. What kind of response was given by the child? And then see how many of it was spontaneous. So if a child has more spontaneous, it's a good sign. Yeah. And then we have reaction. What is the reaction of the adult or the therapist? So you can see that A, B, C, D is looking at the child and the quality or the individual being profiled and the quality of the interaction. Okay, then at the side on the left are the stages. You can see stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So stage 1 to stage 4 goes by within the sentence. So 1 is 1 word, 2 is 2 words, 3 is 3 words. You can see the combination, 3 words, V, X, Y, SVO. 4 is 4 words. Okay, and then you can see that it is also at the top of the stages. You can see it is divided by commands, the type of sentences, commands, and then secondly is questions, and then statements. And then the statements are further divided into clauses, and then phrases. Clauses, phrases. So this part, clauses, phrases, and the type of statements, type of sentence, are the syntactic part. And then at the end, on the most right, you can see the words. These are the words, word endings. So that gives you the word. Then stage 5 is talking about between sentences. So coordination, subordination, intersentence. Stage 6 is talking about plus is good, complex, and minus is errors. So it does highlight the complex structures that the individual has produced and the errors that he has produced. And then at the end, stage 7 is the discourse. Discourse is when they're telling a story, relating experience. So you get that. Okay. All right. So that's LARS. And you can see at the bottom, there is a summary like total number of sentences, mean number of sentences per turn, and mean length utterance. So there are quick information that you can use. Okay. So, respectively, we systematically collected about 8,000 utterances, 130 typically developing Chinese children, and 130 typically developing Malay children. Okay, then we wrote the guide to analyze. We also came up with the meaningfulness and correctness of utterance structures. This is to look at the quality of the interaction, whether the child is attending to the speech of the adult. Because sometimes the child would always not reply, sometimes. So this is the children that participated in this project, total of 260 kids. As you can see, the earlier stages, the interval is only 3 months, 1 to 1 year 2 months, 1 year 3 months to 1 year 5 months. And then that goes on until 211. And then the 3, the 4, and the 6 are all 6 months, 6 months interval. Because the earlier ages are, they develop rapidly, so that is how. Just now I talked about the MCUS. So MCUS is a system that used to see the meaningfulness and the correctness of utterance. So these are the scale. 0 is silence or don't know. 1 is incorrect meaning, incorrect form. 2 is incorrect meaning, correct form. And then 3 is incorrect meaning, correct form. And then 4 is correct meaning, incorrect form, and 5 is correct meaning, correct form. So 5 is the topmost. Key outcomes. So we came up with a language assessment pack for Malay and Chinese speakers, which is the Malay LARS and the Chinese LARS. 9 undergraduate theses, and we attended workshops and presented at local and international level. Now talking about method, so we looked at free conversation by using toys, play a cooking set actually. Storytelling, so we have a storybook that we designed, the race between hare and tortoise, and you can see the difference between narrative abilities, of course. And then we also do retelling. Right. And this is the, you can see that it's 2 sets of picture book actually. This picture book is for 3 to 611, and then this picture book on the left is for very young kid. Because we noticed that if we use the same picture book, there's too many things that distract the child. So we simplify the drawings actually. So so this is the younger kid. Alright. Malay one. So we did an iterator agreement of analysis using the adapted LARS Mandarin. It was quite good, 89%. Okay. This is how LARS is done, you know. So let's say for this project, because I don't speak Mandarin and the UK people, they don't speak Malay, so we insisted that people do gloss translation. So gloss translation means there's a one-to-one translation between the words. And then they do the English translation. This is the gloss translation. Sister are doing what? And then what are you doing? And then we note down the syntactic structure, we note down the contextual information, we note down the MLU and the MCUS. Okay, so as you can see that for each of the utterance, it's for example this one, number 5. For this utterance, we have the actual utterance and then the pinyin version of it, and then the gloss and then the translation. And then you can see at the bottom is clause. Clause for Chinese, they have clause and then phrase level 1 and phrase level 2. But for Malay, we can have clause, phrase, word. Remember the the categories in the LARS just now, clause, phrase, word. Okay, so this is something that we will do later. And this is the MCUS. So this when we MCUS for Chinese children between 1 to 2 months, you find that more of the blue, more of the 0, don't know. Percentage of zeros in free conversation is higher when they are younger. And they have a little bit of the 5 and a little bit of the, cannot see now. A little bit of the 2s in free conversation. 2s is incorrect meaning, correct form. So they start with they know nothing, silence or don't know, and then they proceeded with very little of the 2s and the 5s at the end. can see that changes over time. 1 year to 1 year 5 months, and 1 year 6 months to 1 year 11 months. So you can see now at the end of for 1/6 to 1/11, you can see that now the percentage of correct form, correct meaning has increased. Yeah. So at the end, they will get more correct form, correct meaning. This is the 4-year-olds. So you can see that the 4-year-olds, Chinese children, they get more of the 5s than the rest. This is ability to respond appropriately to the stimuli. Okay, then this is the MLU for the Chinese children. As you can see that, you can determine the MLU, right? So you can see that the MLU in general has increased until 4.29, from 1.03 to 4.29. At the 5 to 5:11, 6:11. So the MLU increase with the increase in age. This is the MLU for the Malay children. As you can see, very low actually for Malay children. Not as talkative as the Chinese children. This is due to many factors. I think you need to know what to ask. When you're doing a free language sample, you need to know how to ask. Don't ask close-ended question. Ask open-ended question. Don't ask what. What is that? It's a pencil. One word. Okay. So, but the Malay MLU shows that it also increases with the age. It's just that it's not as much as the Chinese children. Okay, for Malay, we notice, imagine all these are from LARSP, all this data is from LARSP, from the spontaneous speech that we analyze. So we're looking at the verbs, the nouns, and the other categories, and you notice that for Malay, at least, the verbs are more. The verbs are more than the nouns. More. But it increases when they reach 1 year 3 months, and they increase. Then other categories, very minimal. These are like adjectives, adverbs, other grammatical. So the verbs and the nouns lah. Okay. And this is the verb combination. For the verb combination, when they start to combine words, they don't do it at 1 year to 1 year 2 months. They start doing it at 1 year 3 months and above. Then, okay, verb ox and then verb adverbs. So this is the graph of it. You can see that the blue is the verb only, verb only, and then the green is the auxiliary and verb, and the red is the verb adverbial. So you notice that there's an increase in the use of the verbs, but then it tapers down when the nouns are used more in the increase or on the increase, and then the verb adverbial is very slowly proceeding but not increasing as such. This is okay for young children. So there was a sharp increase of single element verbs followed by a steady decline. This decline, however, seemed to be compensated with an increase of ox and v combination. So they will start with nak, or nak, then they combine nak buka. Then they start to use other verbs like letak sini, verb adverbial. And then the 2 element utterances, they start as we saw just now, subject verb, verb object, and negation and element. So For negation and element, you find that they use more when they are 1 year 6 months to 1 year 8 months, but before that very minimal. And then subject verb not happening at the earlier months, but they are picking up. For example, subject verb is picking up, yeah. And then the verb object is also picking up from 1 year 6 months. This is 3 element. 3 element, you find that they only do 3 element when they are just before 2 years. They start to combine 3 elements: SVO, VVO, and negation X. But negation X very minimal. So only basically subject verb object. Then the stages of LARSP, we notice that when we plot the data, the stage 1 is mainly by the youngest age, 1 year to 1 year 2 months, and then by the time they are 1 year 3 months and 1 year 5 months, they are half, like 50%, starting combining. So they are now also doing the stage 2, and then by the time they are 1 year 6 months, 1 year 8 months, they are predominantly stage 2, and then by 1 year 9 months to 1 year 11, they are doing stage 2. So this is the verb combination patterns by the 2 and 3 year olds. The verbs, you can see the verbs in the blue, the verbs followed by auxiliary and verb, the green ones, and then you have the blue, which is, I think the blue is verb and adverb. Okay, so so some development can be seen by the combination of. In terms of sentences, simple sentences are produced by all by starting 2 years old. 2 years old until 3, 6, 11, let's say. And then complex sentence not happening until they are 2 years 9 months and proceeding, 2 years 9 months. And then for the coordinate, we detected that they start doing it 3 years, between 3 years and 3 years 5 months. So they start with the simple sentence first, and then the complex and the coordinates. These are the examples of utterances of stages. So stage 3, question. Kenapa pecah ni kepala? Stage 3, negation XY. Ayam tak makan. We're talking about negation. So you find that when we are going through the LARSP profile, the stages and the combination is very important. You will note down, oh, okay, starting to use stage 3 question word, because there are 3 elements, right? And then negation. And then subject verb adverb. Dia sikat dulu. This is a subject verb adverb. And then dia nak balik rumah. So this is a use of auxiliary, nak balik rumah. Balik is verb, balik rumah. Okay. Then compound sentence, stage 4. Ini nak mangkuk, nak bubur apa tu? So we will analyze nak mangkuk and then nak bubur. So we notice that if we have 2 verbs, nak mangkuk and nak bubur. Bubur is a verb. So there will be two sentences there. Stage 4 is subordinate. Kalau tak mau masak, letak kat dalam. So kalau tak mau masak is a conditional sentence. So this will be marked by stage 5 by subordinate. So this kalau tak mau masak is a subordinate clause attaching to the main clause. Letak kat dalam. So we will learn step by step how to use, we will learn stage by stage how to analyze the utterance. And then a complex sentence, as you can see, complex sentence, this is SVA, connective, VA, and connective. Okay, so in the story retelling, dia berlari setapak, lepas tu berlari setapak, lepas tu dah habis. So we analyze this and we got this. Yeah? So this is example of a complex sentence. If you have a talking child, he can be quite complex. Huh? Very creative. Okay. Then we notice that so LARSP stage 2 clause patterns. Malay children aged 13 to 15 appear to use emerging simple two-word utterances, and the frequency of occurrence increases dramatically from 16 to 18. And this goes by another research that we do on like a MacArthur CDI, MCDI. We noticed that there's a spurt of words between 1 year 6 months to 1 year 8 months. And then the one word element verb phrase decrease gradually because more complex combinations are used. This is a summary lah. A simple sentence begin about 16 to 18. By 19 to 111, sudden increase in the frequency of occurrence for simple three-word utterances. So these are all this information are gotten from the 130 kids. Then, so we can see that these are the stages, example of word categories. So you can see that very young, they only use noun or verb, and then the combination gets more. So by 2 years and 2 months, they have most for the 2-year-olds lah. 1 and 2-year-olds. This is the LARSP stage 2. So by stage 2 is a two-word combination. It is emerging for 1 year 3 months to 1 year 5, 16 to 18, but established in 19 to 111 or 2 to 2 years, 2 to 2 months old. These are the examples of the combination. Okay. Last stage 3 not present for this age, but emerging at the end of the year 2, the end of the year 1, 2 years to 2 months. So from this tabulation, we can roughly conclude that for Malay children, the LARSP stages is this combination. Stage 1 is about 1 year to 1 year 5. Stage 2 is 16 to 111. But when we compare this Malay development of syntactic construction, we find that it is much lower than the children from the West. Children from the West we look like we are ketinggalan. We look like we are speaking less. That's what it is. But actually, when we look at the language sample, children are speaking naturally with good combination of noun, verbs, and stuff. So we concluded that actually it's our language, that Malay language is started with an oral language, right? So in oral language, in colloquial language, conversational Malay, we find that the context is very rich. So we tend to drop a lot of the grammatical elements, and therefore that might be a cause for the short, the small, or the very like late, delayed stage. In a sense, it's like a delayed stage, yeah, when you compare to Crystal's stage 1 and stage 2. Okay, and then for the 4 to 6 years old, you find that they do, when we study LARSP, we study the whole profile. Doesn't matter whether it's a 4 or 5 years old, because even as an adult, you will tend to also speak 1-word utterance, 2-word utterance, depending on the context. So so we find that in this case, there are some utterances which fall into stage 4, stage 5, stage 6 and stage 7, even though not as much. But the Malay data is not very rich. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to skip that. Then these are the 4 and 6 years old. You can see that when they get to 4 to 6 years old, their structures is more complex. Misalnya, they tend to use let's say initial structures would be they use comma or pause. So no overt subordinate coordinate word. So they'll say, okay, dah siap, tutup. Okay. Or, and then they use commas, lauk ikan, lauk kentang, lauk ayam. But when they are more, they are older and their structures more developed, they say, letak dalam sini, lepas tu potong-potong-potong. Atau makan tom yum dengan buahan, lagi sayur. They're using the connectors. These are the type of questions that they do. So they do everything. As you can see, they do intonation question, start with intonation, and then simple one-word question, and then yes/no question, tag question. And when you talk about WH question, they use kita main apa ni, which is the upper at the original position, and then you can even front the WH word, kenapa. Kenapa ikan ni tak ada besi? So kenapa is the WH word, it is at the front of the sentence. So in conversation, we can either use kita main apa ni at the base position or at the front. They also use relative clause. Relative clause is a harder structure for children. Even by maybe 9 years old, they would, even by 9, only by 9, they 9 years old, they will master the relative clause. So misalnya dia kata selalu ayah yang masak, or dia kata dia masak roti lilit yang hot dog dia kan, dia lilit lepas tu dia masak. So the yang is actually clause modifying object noun phrase or clause modifying adverbial phrase. This is stage 5. Dia sekolah kat sini yang ada rumah Mak Teh. So yang ada rumah Mak Teh is explaining about kat sana tu kan. Okay. So then based on that discussion, actually this is taken from the book 2016. So we then suggested the Malay LARSP. So these are the items in red are the items that we suggested based on our language samples. That in Crystal's LARSP there's no adjective, but because children in our sample use it a lot, so we put adjective as a one-word adjective. And then we also put a verb, adverbial. Then we add compounds, noun and noun determiner. This is stage 3. These are the red are the Malay specific ones that we add on. Yeah. Okay. So we use we explain about the phrases, preposition, noun, determiner. We also do SVV, subject, verb, double verb, or subject, object, adverbial. Okay, so this is the static assessment tool. Okay, done. All right, so now I'm going to talk about LARSP. Okay, so LARSP is a language tool. It can be used to profile language use, either child or adult in language learning. That means teachers can use it in classrooms and also in assessments in SOT clinics. This is a good tool to have if you don't have tests, standardized tests. So when you get your language sample, this provides you a systematic way of analyzing your language sample. So the profile is based on language samples collected and then is mapped onto the LARSP chart. So ordinarily, when you talk about profile, you are looking at a person, let's say a person's profile. So the person's profile is the outline or contour of a human face from the side view. So if there's it's dark and then inside is dark, outside is bright, and someone is standing on the at the doorway, you can actually look at the contour of the face. So that is a profile, right? Profile can also be a verbal, arithmetical, or graphic summary or analysis of history, status of a process or relationship. So it can also be a summary of many other things. So that is also a profile. Also, a profile can be a vivid and concisely written sketch of the life and characteristics of a person. So what you get from this profile is that you get the general idea. So you get the general idea about the person that you're looking at from his profile, side profile. When you look at summaries of analysis, you're able to get the message that the report is trying to tell you. The progress report of a process, some summary about relationship, is it by a counselor, for example, and then a person's life. So what is then a linguistic profile? So a linguistic profile is a principled description of just those features of a person or a group. You can also do a group person's use of language and can be identified and can be used to enable for him to be identified for a specific purpose. So we have done LARSP in looking at children having cochlear implant. So we've done the language analysis of the language sample of cochlear implantees based on LARSP. We've also done language delay for LARSP. A bunch of students did language profile using LARSP on children with autism, but that one we have not published. Okay, so we've done, that means you can actually take the profile and take the language sample of a typical or atypical, and then that can be used for further management. You can see, because sometimes, like in the study that we did, when we wrote the LARSP Malay profile chapter, so we've done all the LARSP profile, and then we wanted to see whether the LARSP, the information that we got from the LARSP, is it the same if we do an MPLAT on those kids. So we did that. So when we did the MPLAT, these are kids, language delay kids. We find that the MPLAT tells us that they can't do the sentence repetition at all. They can't do the referential meaning, the meaning of the words. It looks quite, so in fact, like they can do receptive, but they seem not to be able to do the expressive. However, when we do the linguistic, the LARSP, we find that they can use language. It's just that they are basic language, but they are language. Probably because the standard MPLAT is actually focusing on certain structures. But when we do the language sampling of spontaneous speech, then the child is more at ease and the child produces language. Okay, so sometimes it's good, it's always actually, if you do a structured test, a standardized test, it's good to top it up with language sample or some other subjective. But if you're looking at targeting at word, vocabulary or grammar, then LARSP is good for you. Okay, so it can be used, so it's a principled description, very principled in the sense that it is structured. Because actually, I probably look for that excerpt from one of the newer books of LARS, which David Crystal was saying in his foreword, how he came up with LARS. So he came up with LARS because he was called to a speech clinic, and the speech therapist and the audiologist don't know what is the problem, how to, to get to use the information. So he actually observed the session, and then he came up with some notes about the language use, and then out of that, after many analysis, he came up with LARS. Okay, so it is something that it's quite a humongous job for a speech therapist when you deal with language sample. But with Crystal's linguistic profile, you're able to analyze it. So we can use the profiles in clinical and also remedial, in clinic and also in classrooms. So what is so clinical? Clinical, it refers to a situation where there is human disability, and one of the symptoms of disability is the abnormal use of language. It can be all disorders, organic or psychogenic origin. It involves all modalities: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And professionals, speech therapists, teachers, remedial teachers, and researchers can use this. So what's the purpose? The purpose is to enable an accurate assessment of the patient or the pupil's disability to be made sufficient to provide a basis for remedial intervention. Okay, because that's what we want to do. We want to intervene either in the classroom or in the clinic. So we need to have data that we about the individual so that we can make planning for the therapy. To generate hypotheses concerning the nature of the disability and its remediation. So you kind of have to, you can see that, which part of it that they are not good at. Is it the clause level, or is it the phrase level, or is it the word level that they are having difficulties with in all the stages? So what's the goal? The goal of the profile is to identify the linguistic level the patient or the pupil has achieved in relation to the level he should be achieving. So for the English profile, they have done the analysis, and they've put down the the stages that I showed you just now at the left side. So they have identified stage 1 is what age, stage 2. But for Malay and Mandarin, the only research that we did was the 130 kids. So 200, 130, 130. And then, yeah, and after that we did not do any, we did not test more children. So so the stages are with caution. But after some time, I think if people use it, they will be able to, in fact, determine their own from their experience using it. So so if you know, like English LARS, you know that age they should be which level. So when you plot your language sample, you can find there's a pattern emerging from the plotting or the mapping, and you can see which, let's say he's at the 2 level, but second level, but he should be at the 4th level. So then you can plan your therapy so that his language is more higher, more enriched. And then you can use the information to suggest a remedial path. Same thing lah, just now kan, where you actually say, okay, long-term plan, short-term plan, that you're going to do, make him move from level 2, for example, to level 4. So what are you going to do? So you suggest a remedial path. Okay. But actually, Crystal says that a linguistic, there is a compromise. This profile is a compromise. So a linguistic profile is a compromise between the demands of routine clinical practice. Okay, meaning that we know that speech therapists, they have heavy caseloads in the clinic. So they cannot be doing language sample all the time. Okay, I think to do one also you need to see whether you have the time to do it. Unless it's imperative that you want to know for sure, so you do a language sample. And then, but the LARSP is a compromise because the profile itself is very practical. I think the problem, the issue is, it's not really the profile. The issue is you interpreting the grammatical categories of the elements that you are analyzing. That takes time. You don't know whether this is a noun or a verb, or because sometimes when they, especially children, when they use language, they use it creatively, so you're not sure. And then, so it is a compromise. Academic diagnostic research, looking at like meaning developing tools. Developing tools take a long time. So this is a fast current tool that you can use. And then let's say if you don't have a standardized test in the country for language, let's say before MPLAT, you have nothing. So language sample, language profiles are good to use when there is no standardized. Plus, it immediately tells you about that particular patient that you are managing. Okay, so insofar as the child itself that you're testing, you know what is the capability of the child, what is the area of weakness by using a profile. But you must remember that a profile is not a test. Yeah? A profile is just a profile, a summary. It does not have a score, as you can see, no score. Although we can make it into a computation kind of analysis by percentages, for example, but it's not a test. You can have the score, but you don't have the way of interpreting what is he normal or abnormal. No, we don't have. So it is. It's not constrained by time. Like a test, you have to do it within 10 minutes or within 40 minutes. But profile, no, not constrained by time, because you are finished when you're finished. Okay, it's a systematic. It's not a systematic guide to remediation. Also, like not like a recipe ABC on how to treat stuttering. Let's say no. It's just a guide that is used for to help you, but not really like a recipe kind. Okay, so a profile is also not identified with any set of teaching materials or syllabus which underlies them. That means it's just taking like the sample, so it's not identified with any pedagogy or curriculum. And a profile is not to be identified with the linguist's description of a language, because it is that person's language. So he can be speaking Malay, but you are now describing his language, his Malay language, which might have some variation. Okay. Useful tips in using profiles. You need to use it more than one language setting, because sometimes kids actually it's best to do a language sample with children that you know. That is the most practical tips actually, because they already know you and they will speak very freely. But on the other hand, you can also overcome that by having, you are the ethnographic researcher, you're at the background. So the child is playing with the mom. So no problem, right, in getting the language sample. Because the child is very familiar with the mom, they're playing cooking set and is having a good time and talking. But you can also vary that. You can do relating experience, for example, or storytelling, or so because it's nice to have more than one setting, because they again gives you an overall view of the child's language abilities. And then you need to follow the categorization. I would say the manual is like a Al-Quran to the Muslims and the Bible to the Christians. So when you're doing LARS, you must follow the chart. Okay, follow the chart, understand the categorization, read the manual. At least you have to do 50 consecutive utterance in 2 different settings of a particular individual. Less than 50 is not reliable lah. At least 50. For these are the tips lah. So clinical significance, it provides the principal way of integrating the task of screening, assessment, and remedial teaching. And then it also takes into consideration the socio-linguistic setting of interaction, like just now I showed you, section A, B, C, D, how P is communicating, who he is communicating with, in what kind of situation, what kind of task, etc. Okay. The use of profile for research, we have used it a lot. Like this is the exploring the relationship between school readiness, language, and cognitive abilities of the cochlear implant children. This is by my master student, Nantanet, with the team. But it's already been published by Britannica. And then we also published a chapter in More Languages of Love 2016, Profiling Malay Children's Syntactic Development, Malay Loves. So this is a good chapter to refer to as a speech therapist actually. It gives you most of the data I showed you just now is from there, but with more explanation. Yeah? Okay, and then of course the profiling of language of Malay children with autism still ongoing. Yeah? Present findings, you have the table, and then you have the LARS chart. This is the table. You can provide, this is a group profiling the 6 CI children. So then Tana actually analyze, and then so you have the expansion, your errors, and value, language age. Okay. So these kids, they are different capabilities, because with cochlear implant, many factors influence their language. Like when do they put on the cochlear implant, when do they switch on, family support and stuff. But this is how you present your data. Then another form is you use the form, but I don't like this. This is another assignment lah, but I prefer you say you don't use this. You just type or write. These are the number of occurrences. The number of occurrences of the structures. SV 2 times, SC 4 times, VC 7 times. So as you can see that usually no name, very bad. Must have the name, age, sample date, type. So as you can see from this profile, it is more concentrated in level 1, level 2. No, level 2 and level 3, right? This is level 2, level 3. Level 1 have some, but not much. And then starting level 4 and level 5. You don't know how old, but it's quite, if you don't know how old, then this data doesn't make sense. But at least we know that, okay, the kid being profiled is at stage 2 and stage 3, and starting emerging stage 4 and stage 5. So important conclusion, profiles are not statements about P's language abilities. They are summaries of P's performance as reflected in his output in response to T stimuli. Okay, so very good for clinical work, right? Summaries. This is what you want to know. And then T infers P's production about his production abilities or comprehension ability. But if you use the MCUS, you can actually do the comprehension ability. You remember the MCUS? The child's response to the stimuli could be number 1 to number 5, right? 5 is correct form, correct meaning. So the MCUS can actually do the comprehension aside from the production by the MCUS. So these are the stages of profiling. A sample of data is obtained. For our course, the focus is not you getting the sample, right? If for students in morphosyntax that you took last term, the focus is more on language sample to get it to transcribe because we want you to practice getting language sample analyzing. But in this course, you can take any available sample that you have and do maybe you can take from your own sample when you did your morphology and syntax course, okay, and analyze according to LARSP. So no need to collect data. So already you have the data, you have already transcribed, and now you analyze. So we will look at, so we will analyze utterance by utterance. So what you saw in one of the slides, we actually did utterance by utterance. Each utterance is analyzed based on the clause, the phrase, and the word level. So after we analyze, we can then profile it on a summary chart. The summary chart is the chart, the daunting chart that you saw at the end. So that's a summary chart, the LARSP chart. And then you can see the pattern. And then you can interpret the pattern in terms of your intervention. So those are the stages of profiling. Procedures in LARSP. I think this is the same as before. So we collect for practicing speech therapists, according to Professor Li Zhenjin, for practicing speech therapists, you graduated already, you can take any 10 consecutive utterances and you can analyze according to LARSP. 10 consecutive, one after the other, 10. First 10, middle 10, or the final 10. You can take and you analyze, and then you can actually do a description of the child's abilities. So after you have analyzed, you count the frequency of the combination of clause or phrases. And then you note down, for example, how many times did the child use SVO? 5 times. So you're going to transfer this to your LARSP chart, SVO 5. Then you go next to the other structure and to the next structure until we finish the utterance. So eventually we will see a pattern of language use emerging from the chart. Then we write an essay or a report, clinical report, on the language abilities of the child. I can tell you now that if you do a LARSP analysis, you will get a very precise description of the child's abilities. And then you have to use a standardized to look at the developmental, you want to compare the child with another child in terms of the development. Okay, then so you write an essay or you can actually consider what's the strength of the child and the areas of improvement. Okay, and we say for each child, advise to take 10 consecutive utterances of 2 or more language sample. So assignment. Okay, wait, no. Actually, not the, I think the impact 50, that is 50. So yeah, analyze, plot, write an essay. Then the LARSP is 50 utterances. But the 50 utterances can be collected over a few sessions. Not doesn't have to be one session. Put together. All right. Any question? Aside from doing LARSP, we'll also be reading. We are going to read articles that uses LARSP to give us an idea about the LARSP. Huh? Let me look at the. Look at the manual. Oh, it's okay. So, reading it. Manual. Here's the manual. Manual. So this is the manual. You can see. Okay. So there's a content page. Assume prior knowledge. Bohm gives you a quiz, and then gives a guide to language sampling, how to perform the LARS, and then go by the stages. So you can see she does stage 1, stage 2, and the rest. So let's say we go. So in order to do LARS, you need to have you need to know what is a determiner, a pronoun, intensifier, adverb, adjective, and then the phrase structure. So she will give you the quiz. Huh? This is for language sampling lah. Huh? So language sampling you can read. Huh? Using the phrase "tell me more." Okay, this one. A recommendation for using LARS. So of course you do. I was gonna talk about the this one, I think. So you have to fill in a section ABCD. ABCD is the like a bio data lah. Huh? Especially A, B is the response, C spontaneous, and D is the interaction. Huh? And then assign each utterance. Assign each utterance. What is the sentence type? Is it a question, a command, or a statement? So once you see the sentence type, then you can look into the sentence type. Mark any clause level credit. Mark any clause level credit the child receives. Mark any clause level credit the child receives. That means you just note down how many statements, how many questions, how many commands for each of your utterance. Because you will say, this is a statement, so number one statement. So after a while, you will add it up, and then you mark any phrasal level that the child receives, and then you mark any word level that the child receives. You give one mark. Mark any expansion credit the child receives for stage 2 and stage 3. They have expansion. That means the nouns are being expanded, so that's good. So we give the child markah lah. Mark any connectivity credit the child receives. So stage 5, that is the inter-sentence, right? So that is connectivity. They use dan, tapi, lepas tu, dan sebagainya. And then stage 6 is positive credit. If they use complex, then you give credit under stage 6. You mark any errors, just for your information, errors. No deduction of marks for errors, but just noting down. Mark any stage 7 credit the child receives. Okay. After completing the last profile, analyze to establish which language structures the child is producing and which language structures they have not yet developed. If the majority of the child's utterances fall within the stage that corresponds to their age, then the child's syntactic language can be described as age appropriate. This is something that I have not done. I need to do for the Malay LARS, developmental. Hopefully that can be done. Okay. So these are the abbreviations. Let's that you just, if you're not sure what it stands for, then you can refer to it. Now we want to go to stage 1. So the profile, the last profile stage, section by section, stage by stage. So then clinical identification, very important, right? Name, age, sample date, age and also date of birth, I think. Better, sample date, when did you take the sample and what is that? Spontaneous, storytelling. So then example like this. 11 minutes of free conversation with trains and play figures. Age 3 years 7 months. Sample date, but I think you should do DOB also, date of birth. Okay. So then you have the ABCD. These sections are designed to categorize the type of responses the child has produced and the way the therapist has elicited these responses. So the D part you can also use to improve on your interaction with your patients. Okay, then we have the unanalyzed, section A, which is unintelligible, not clear, symbolic noises, or it's all noises, deviant from the structure. Okay, so you see the definition. She gives the definition of unintelligible, impossible to assign them a grammatical category because it's not clear. So we put how many times that happens. How many times? Symbolic noise, imitation of well-known noises representing objects or animals. Example, barking, siren. How many times the child does this? Write it down. 5 times. So the noting of this will indicate also to you that whether the child is developing okay. Deviant, utterances that fit into neither adult grammatical structures nor the predicted grammatical development of normal children. Misal contohnya kick dog horse. This is not a regular feature. Kick dog horse. You don't know. Kick. What is dog horse? Is it kick dog Horse? The horse kicked the dog or what? So not deviant, So we note down. How many times deviant? Problematic. Any utterance that adheres to grammatical rules. However, it is unclear how to categorize it. You'll find this many times. You don't know how do I categorize this. So that's when you come to me and ask. You email me or you WhatsApp me. Doctor, you give me the example and what is your analysis, and I'll tell you whether you're doing it right or not. Okay. Incomplete. Utterances that are grammatically incomplete. For example, Mommy went to the... You try to get from context where, but you couldn't. So this is an incomplete. Although semantically incomplete, but can be acceptable in terms of grammaticality. So you can still analyze. You say, Mommy is S, went is V. It's just that you don't know what's the A to the what. But I think it should be, you should be able to do it within the context. So some speaker will repeat. They will have restarts. That's okay. You just count it as one. You said but you count only one U lah. Yeah? Ambiguous. Utterance that could receive two or more syntactically correct interpretation, like just now. Kick, dog, horse, you don't know. Ambiguous. So you also count. How many ambiguous? If many ambiguous, also problem. Right. Stereotype. Partially, all or partially stereotype. Not it. For example, it is rote learned utterances that they got from the television or the YouTube. For example, what about me? So, sound like it's the title of a song, or the sooner the better, or Mary has a little lamb, or whatever lah, whatever song You don't know whether, let's say for example, what about me? Actually, do you think the child knows what is what, about is about me? So you need to figure that out. If you think it's not, then it's probably a stereotype. I guess this will happen not just once, but many times across the language sample. So then you are able to say, oh, that's a stereotype. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That could be rote memory, because when you ask the child to count, he couldn't count. Let's say there's 2 pencils. How many pencils? He doesn't know. He just know how to memorize. So that's called stereotype. Okay, so this is section B and C. So B is the responses and C is the spontaneous. Sorry, B and C. So as you can see, the responses is divided into normal response, abnormal response. Major is complete, and non-major. So let's see. Stimulus types. Records the therapist's total number of stimulus questions and other stimuli provided as prompts for the child. So for example, stimulus type. This one. Stimulus type here, this one. Stimulus type, is it the stimulus questions or other? That means if there are many questions, so you say 30 questions as stimuli, and then others maybe 10. So that means it tells us that the adult is asking too many questions, probably because the child is not able to initiate conversation. So the adult will ask more questions, right? So this will indicate also some difficulties here if more questions than asked as stimulus. Okay. So another kind of stimulus. Okay. Shaping utterances, initiation of a topic, beginning a new topic, gestures. Okay. Repetitions. Responses where the child is repeating some or all of the therapist's utterance, instance of echolalia would be categorized here, as well as requested repetition. So you will have to see whether the repetition is just repetition, or it's just a genuine repetition. For example, adik nak makan ice cream, then he says ice cream, like that. That one is genuine, like surprise, like, ice cream, like so that repetition has a meaning. But then if you have, like you say, adik letak kat sini, letak kat sini, he will say, masukkan, he say masukkan. He repeats what you say, so then you know it's repetition or echolalia. Okay, then the normal response can be divided into major, elliptical major. These are all items that can be analyzed. So you say, where's the cat? He says, in the basket. This is, if you can remember from morphology and syntax, this is the elliptical test, that in the basket is actually a full sentence, even though it's just 3 words. But it represents a full sentence. The cat is in the basket. Okay, so how many times does the child do this? Okay, 5 times. So we write the number 5 in the elliptical major, under the elliptical major. So the omitted clause elements are assumed from the linguistic context. There is an assumed knowledge on the part of the questioner that the subject is the cat. So these utterances are categorized under 1, 2, or 3 plus, depending on how many elements are omitted. So if they omit 1, you say 1, 2, 2. Like this one is, they only repeat 3, right? So they are deleting the cat is, so that's 3 elliptical. Okay, reduced major. These are responses which omit clause elements but are not elliptical. What's happening? Girl in the shop. They are not elliptical because they look like a telegraphic. Girl in the shop. The girl is in the shop. So they reduce the sentence, omitting the crucial verb, copula, is. So it's a bit ungrammatical, but reduced major. Full major, responses which use the full major sentence. Where's the cat? It's in the basket. So that's full major. Minor, using a minor sentence as a response. No, So we can count how many? Stage 1. Abnormal, structural. For example, what is the mouse doing? Yes. Structural is when it is an unexpected, unexpected, inappropriate response. You ask, you expect to say eating or running, but then the response is yes. So I think children with pragmatic impairment might do this. Autism. 0, no response. A response is expected, but none was given. Okay, so how many times 0 response? Ignoring. Problems, utterances where there's some doubt whether it's abnormal, minor, or elliptical, you can put it under problems. It's like a caveat kind of thing. Okay, spontaneous. What is spontaneous? Only the first utterance produced by the child in response to a stimulus from the therapist is classified under responses. All subsequent utterances produced by the child prior to another stimulus from the therapist are classified as section C, spontaneous. So for example, if the therapist say, what can you see? I see Johnny. Him playing with the ball is happy. So then you can actually count. I see Johnny is full major response, section B. Him playing with the ball is a full major spontaneous, which he volunteers himself. Is happy, there is elliptical, and R is a social minor. This is how we should categorize. So section D. Section D is where it's an audit on you. Audit on you, meaning it tells us the impact. It highlights the impact of the therapist's reaction on the child's utterance. How do you respond to the child? So this is a self-edit. You can self-audit. Okay. So let's say the therapist repeats the child's utterance to elicit further detail. What's this? A dog. A dog. Now, what's that? So, how many times the therapist does this, which is good. Repeating the words. And then general. The therapist's reaction is structurally unrelated to the child's response. This includes, what's that? A train. Yes, good girl. So positive reinforcement. Correction of an incorrect response. What's this? A crocodile. No, it's not a crocodile. It's a dinosaur. So that one you can put under general. Structural. The therapist's reaction is related to the child's utterances. For example, expanding grammar. What's this? It pear. It is a pear. Expanding. Paraphrasing. What's this? A fish. You have a fish like that at home, aren't you? Or do you? Responding to a stimulus from the child. What is it called? It's a lion. So you're communicating with the child, which is good. Repeating for the child. Zero. The zero is the therapist does not produce a reaction to the child's response. The therapist initiates a new topic or remains silent in anticipation of further utterances from the child. So that is the pro and con of it. What's this? A dog. What do you want to do now? So not responding to the child's utterance of a dog. So this might not be good. If you do a lot of this, then you might have to audit yourself and do more of the expanding or repetition. Other reactions that are not directed towards the child, like making notes into a tape recorder about the child's language, communication with other individuals in the room, or talking to oneself while setting up the next stimulus. Okay, and then problems is if you cannot categorize any of those above, you can put it under problems. Okay. So then this is the word level. So in English in English you have ing, going, strolling, you credit them. Plural, credit for the use of plural form of the noun. Ed, past, en, past perfect or past subject verb agreement. I think this for English is okay, but you can read it on your own. But that's just now was ABCD, right? Okay, now let's take a quiz. The quiz just now. So you can mark yourself. That means you answer and then we see the answer. You answer the question and we see how much you score, how much you got wrong, right. Number 1 and 2. Which of the following phrases contains the determiner A, B, C, D? So right, number 1, A. Let's say. Okay. Number 2. Which of the following phrases, clause, contains the pronoun A, B, C? Alright. Number 3. Which of the following phrase or clauses contains an intensifier? Remember intensifier? Usually with an adjective, right? Intensifier. A, B, C. Number 4. Which of the following phrases or clauses contains an adverb? Do we know what is an adverb? We say adverb always helps the verb. See, I'm giving you tips. Number 5. Which of the following phrases or clause contains an adjective? Easy one. Okay, now we do the phrase structure. Which of the following phrases clause contains a noun phrase? ABC. Number 2. Which of the following sentences contains a verb phrase? ABC. Which one? Just write ABC. Huh? A, B, or C. Number 3. Which of the following sentence contains subordination? Subordination means like a subordinate at work. Subordinate. You have the boss and then you have the subordinate. So subordination. Okay, number 4. Which of the following sentences contains coordination? Coordination. Coordinate. Alright. A, B, or C. Now we go to the clause element. Oh, there's a typo there. Clause element knowledge. Number 1. Which of the following sentences has used Naomi as the subject? Number 2. Which of the following sentences has used the ball as an object? Oh, yeah. Now at 4:52, 4:43. 4:43, Miss Shireen tells me that she's not, I haven't accepted. Why at 4:43? Wait, we have the recordings, okay. Okay, which of the following sentences, okay. Number 3, Which of the following phrase or clauses contains a verb? A, B, C. Number 4. Which of the following sentences contains an adverbial? Adverbial. You. Adverbial. Adverbial. A, B, or C? All right. Next. Which of the following sentences contains a complement? Okay, next, verb type. Which of the following sentences contains an auxiliary verb? A, B, C. Which of the following sentences contains a copular verb? Which of the following sentences contains a transitive verb? Alright. Proceed. Which of the following sentences contains an intransitive verb? A, B, C. Intransitive. Form. I think I'll skip this because it's English, huh? Morphemes. Okay, which of the following sentences contains the suffix ing? This is pertain to English. Which of the following sentences contains a third person singular construction? Third person singular construction. Which of the following contains the suffix n? Disguised or in undisguised? En. En is actually the past participle, right? Past participle. Okay, which of the following sentence contains a plural construction? Plural construction. Which of the following sentences contains a genitive construction? Genitive means object to the preposition. Genitive. Okay, let's see. So these are the answers. You can mark your answers. So we deducted one part just now, right? I think part 5, I think we deduct, we eliminate. Three and 4. I guess it's 3 and 4. 5 we do away, I think. Okay, so the take-home message is that it's good if you have scored highly or average. That means what you do is you take the numbers of items, total it up, and see the percentage that you got right from the total number of items. And then if you feel that you're getting low, then it's time to go back to your grammar books and reacquaint yourself with the grammar of Malay or grammar of English. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's all for today. So for next time, I will give you a reading that you will read, and we discuss it next time. And then you need to tell me your group groupings, the 4 groups. Okay, so I'll see you next time, inshallah. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you.